Hello, sweet souls. Welcome to Soul Love. I'm Mafalda. Welcome back if you've been here before. I want to start this video by saying thank you. Thank you to all of you who've been showing your support in the comments section by also suggesting topics for me to address. It really does not go unnoticed, and it absolutely brings meaning and purpose to the work that I do. So I am so appreciative of that. Please continue to do so. I am truly doing my best to get to all the questions. Some of them take me a little bit longer because I want to make sure that I'm bringing clarity and that I'm speaking from a place of integrity, but none of them are forgotten. So do stay tuned. And of course, do check out my links below for my work on other platforms where I do address a wider array of topics, namely on Threads and Instagram, especially if you're dedicated to doing inner work, to expanding your consciousness. You might find some stuff on there that interests you and that is helpful on your journey as a twin as well. So specifically here on this channel, Soul Love, I discuss the twin flame phenomenon in all its complexity and its nuance, and trying to be as real and as grounded as possible to help you and assist you throughout your journey without going off on loops of never-ending cycles of separation and more separation consciousness. So in today's video, I'm going to address a question that I received, a suggestion, because I do feel like it might be really helpful to many twins in separation and many of you out there that may be experiencing this specific scenario. And the question is, why the matrix twin, the 3D twin, or the divine masculine, or both counterparts, at times reject the other or deny the connection altogether. And this is actually a nuanced, multi-layered question because there are multiple things going on here, and it's also multi-dimensional, just like this journey. So there's a lot to cover. This is very juicy, and I'm going to do my best to bring you a wide, general overview of the many things at play in a scenario like this one. So the first thing I want to address is how shadow mirroring works within a twin flame connection, because I feel like this will set the foundation for you to understand why this is a multi-layered question, and it's not as simple as some twin flame content out there tries to put it. It is more so split soul content that puts it this way, but it just scratches the surface. And what I'm talking about is when you hear a sort of teaching that says that if they're rejecting you, that's because you are rejecting yourself. And although it is correct to say that your twin is your perfect soul mirror, the mirroring doesn't necessarily happen as directly as depicted in this example that I just gave you. And I'm going to explain why, especially for monadic twin flames. So buckle up. Here we go. We're going to dive deep. As I've mentioned in previous videos, and as you might be aware, monadic twin flames split at the level of the 13th dimension. So just before coming into the material realms. That means that as a soul, you have had many lifetimes, including lifetimes prior to coming to planet Earth, where you've already experienced a separate existence from your twin. In fact, there are twin flames, monadic twin flames, that have experienced lives in separate star systems. So not all of us incarnate with our twin on the same planet at the same time. In fact, that's my personal case. I've had lifetimes in different star systems to my twin. What that means is that your soul has experienced different scenarios, different realities, even different worlds. That's one layer to it. Another layer is that you are incarnated in a different body. That also comes with a different ego and a different mind. So although we are one at the soul level, and for monadic twins, we are one in the 13th dimension, so at that level of consciousness, we are still different people. Having a different mind and a different ego plays a massive role when you're incarnated on a planet like Earth. That means that your wounding and your trauma, although it will perfectly mirror your twins, is not the same. It's just a mirror. So this is really important to bear in mind because it'll help you get out of self-deprecation or self-judgment or even shame loops of feeling like you're attacking yourself. So let me give you an example. This happened to me for a while because I didn't yet know that I was a monadic twin. I was stuck in a couple of loops thinking, but why am I rejecting myself? Why would I? It didn't feel right. It didn't feel like it fit my exact experience. And that's why discovering and finding out that I am a monadic twin actually really helped clarify a lot of what was happening because it added the layers of past lives, galactic memory, even galactic wars, and just a much wider perspective on what was happening that perhaps might be more useful to split souls, but for monadic twins, it may keep us a little bit limited in our understanding of what actually is taking place, what's actually happening. So that brings me to the answer to this specific question. So why is it that the 3D or matrix twin or our counterpart, our divine masculine, at times will reject us or will deny the connection altogether? And this is usually throughout periods of separation. Why is that happening? So again, there are multiple layers. Let's look at the human 3D ego reason why that happens. Again, we have different egos. Bear that in mind. The ego being the constructed ideas, mental conceptions we have of ourselves that keep us separate, our identities, etc. All the distorted truths that keep us from realizing who we are at the core. Of course, the ego isn't necessarily evil, but I go into that in more depth in the video that I recorded about ego death and collapsing separation. So do check that out if you're interested. So back to having separate egos. Let's look at this from their perspective first. So what's happening is they've met their divine counterpart, their perfect soul mirror that carries the exact same core soul frequency as them. That is a mirror of truth. When you meet yourself, and when I say yourself, I don't mean you as a person, right? I mean you as a soul, and not even just as a soul, but as a soul frequency, as a core soul frequency. What that does is it brings out anything that had been denied, anything that had been buried, anything that is in the way of unconditional love. That is a lot of truth to be confronted with. That will require gargantuan amounts of responsibility, of courage to face all the bits of ourselves that were still fragmented, all the places where we were not fully coming into our divine selves. And so an automatic reaction from the ego, because the ego's job is to keep us in the familiar, to keep us within what's comfortable, what's perceived as safe, what's more of the same, the automatic reaction of the ego is going to be to reject that. Because when you encounter a person that brings out not only your highest potential, but also your greatest shadow, it's going to ask you to die to the false self, to let go of anything that is misaligned. You will never be the same again after meeting your twin. That requires immense transformation. That means you're going to have to change and shift so many aspects of your life. So that's quite literally the opposite of staying the same. So the ego reacts and says, no, danger, that is unsafe. So on one level, that's what's happening. The ego is reacting against the mirror of truth that is asking them to step into their higher selves. And that is a terrifying process for the ego, because it requires death. It requires ego death. And the ego cannot understand that that doesn't mean our death. It just means the death of anything that's false, that is not in alignment with the truth, with love, with wholeness. So there is a rejection of that. It is important to understand that they're not rejecting you. They're rejecting the need for change. They're rejecting the parts of themselves that they haven't had the courage to face. They're rejecting their own shadow because of what it'll ask of them. And it requires so much bravery that it's a process for them to surrender into it. And that surrender for them comes through collapse. It's complete internal collapse. So on one level, that's what's happening. On another level, it is a mirror for you to come into your power. So although it doesn't mean that they're necessarily, that they're necessarily mirroring your own rejection of yourself, they could be mirroring your need to step into your power fully without validation. They are mirroring your inner work. They're mirroring your need, and I say need for lack of a better word, but your need to fully choose yourself, to know, to come into the knowing of what is real, what is true. And they're also asking you to collapse separation consciousness in terms of realizing, wait a second, I know that this is real. And I don't need them to validate this. I don't need us to be together physically for them to choose me physically to know that this connection is real. And although this process is extremely painful, it is actually very effective in getting us to do that, because you grieve through all the times that you were abandoned, all the times that you were rejected, all the times that others downplayed, dismissed, invalidated your truth. It also asks us to let go of control, let go of the need to make them see, because we come into our own inner sovereignty. We see, we know, and that's enough. We don't need to go outside and change anything about our 3D reality to know who we are, to know what love is. So it is actually a very effective way to get us to step into our divinity, to remember who we are beyond what's playing out in the 3D. So that's the there's always something happening for both, because even if it's not necessarily a direct mirror in the sense that they're rejecting you, you're rejecting yourself, like I was explaining before, there is always a lesson for us. It is always an invitation for us to go deeper within ourselves, to collapse more of our own separation consciousness and our own ego. Because our ego, if we are a part of a scenario like this, will have aspects of it that are still playing in this victimhood, in this unworthiness, in this need to be chosen, in this frustration with reality as it is. And acceptance is an essential ingredient for the expansion of our level of consciousness and for our ascension. And so it has to play out that way for us to come into full acceptance. And I've spoken about the paradoxical nature of this journey. In fact, the paradoxical nature of reality itself, and you can see that through the Hermetic principles as well, but that's the paradox. It's only when you accept that you don't need them in the 3D that they can actually come back. Because that's just the nature of reality itself, the nature of energy. All right, so let's move into a deeper layer. Another aspect, another reason why this is happening and why they reject you or even deny the connection altogether is due to past life trauma. So especially monadic twins, but all twins have had multiple lifetimes together. And multiple lifetimes with many 3D timelines playing out. So we are awakening in this specific incarnation, but we've had multiple lifetimes with them. Multiple lifetimes, and many times for most of us here on Earth, a planet where people that carry divine wisdom, that carry codes for New Earth, for 5D living, have been tortured, silenced, abused, exiled, you name it. And because of the counter forces interfering to keep twins apart, to keep twins separate, and to keep humanity within a 3D level of consciousness in general, because it's the most effective way to siphon our energy, because they are themselves disconnected from source. Because that's been happening, we've been through, many times, we've been through traumatic timelines of separation with our twins. And so what could be happening for them, or even for us, is a denial or a rejection out of fear and out of protection, because so many counterparts have seen the other die before their eyes, have seen the other be tortured, have been forced by the counter forces to participate in their demise, have been tricked, have been abused, have been siphoned for trying to reunite with their counterparts. So a part of this is their own protection. They want to shut these memories out. It's sort of it's a subconscious little thread that goes, remember what happened last time. Let's not go down that road. Let's not go down that road. Let's try and shut it down. And of course, eventually they realize that they can't, because you cannot sever this bond. But there is a protective mechanism. Another aspect that's related to this is that they could also be literally playing out past timelines of what happened in previous lives. And that's where this sort of disproportionate reaction might come in. So they might be reacting with a level of rejection and a level of denial that simply does not match your current life circumstances. This is usually an indicator that this is a past life situation. Why would they be so scared? Why would they be so adamant to reject or deny the connection, even though in this particular lifetime, there isn't a threat to life, or the danger isn't that, pardon me, that great? Well, they could literally subconsciously be playing out past life trauma. And again, they are the 3D matrix twins. So their job, their role is to literally hold that shadow, to hold the subconscious and to act it out for us to remember, for us to come into our awareness. And so now our own awareness of what's playing out, our own spiritual gifts and psychic abilities to literally get those light bulbs going off, switching on and being like, oh, wait a second, this has happened before. I remember this. So that actually brings me to the section of this video that's how to cope. Again, there's several different layers because first we need to deal with the emotional, mental side of this. You have to learn how to feel. You have to allow yourself to feel the pain, to grieve the perceived separation, because denying it or judging yourself for it or shaming yourself for it isn't going to help. You literally need to clear all that stored emotion, all those trapped emotions of all those lifetimes, all those situations, not just with your twin, in fact, but with anybody in your life or lifetimes where you've been abandoned, where you've been silenced, where you've been rejected, humiliated, abused, tortured, exiled, whatever it may be. So you need to feel your way through that. And that's just a process. It just does not happen overnight. It's over and over and over again. It's a practice. You need to flush all these feelings out. That's why you need to develop your inner masculine and allow your inner feminine to unravel so that you can create the containment within yourself to feel your way through all of it. Then you need to work your way and disentangle yourself from all those subconscious limiting beliefs that you are not worthy of love, that you're not good enough, and that's why they're rejecting you. And this will come up again and again and again. And what happens is that, and this is shadow work, whichever techniques or modalities you may use, and of course, you may find it helpful to get assistance from somebody that does any type of healing, whether that be energy healing or somatic psychotherapy, whichever modality fits with you best. But you may find that helpful, because once you've cleared enough of that, once you've cleared enough of the debris of trauma, wounding, and distortion in general, which is what's necessary for realignment to occur, what happens is that you start you're ascending as you do that, because the more you clear, the more you're able to shift your baseline vibrational frequency. That's what ascension is. And you start your station of identity. So your baseline frequency starts to become higher and higher. Once that starts to happen, you start to gain access to soul memory. You start to gain access to the Akashic records, and you start to remember. So you start to remember beyond this life. You start with this life, and that includes, for example, I haven't mentioned this in previous videos, but inner child healing is extremely important. And our inner child is actually multidimensional. It's not just the child from this life, but that inner child healing. You can also call this reparenting, the process of developing your inner masculine and inner feminine. That's another way to describe or to name this work. But once that's done, you start to get those past life memories. You start to realize that what's being revealed to you is not just about this life. And this happens naturally and organically as you're ascending, because again, you're disidentifying from your ego in this life. So you're no longer attached to your identity as, let's say in my case, Mafalda, who was born, in a certain place or a certain culture, is a certain age, has certain characteristics. You start to detach from that identity, and that is what allows for your soul memory to start coming through. And then you start to gain a lot more context. And this is, of course, as a monadic twin. You start to remember the multiple lifetimes when this happened with your twin here on Earth, and even beyond that, lives in different star systems, galactic wars that you may have fought side by side, in which one or both of you may have been manipulated in order to get you to turn on the other, for example, and that's what's playing out in this lifetime. So this is just a multi-layered issue, but what I can really recommend to cope is double down on your self-love practices. Self-love isn't a switch that you can turn on and off. It's something that you develop, but it comes through really releasing judgment of whatever is coming up and starting to get curious. I mean, curiosity is one of the most effective tools for any healing journey, any spiritual awakening, and any process of transformation or expansion. Removing the charge of this is supposed to happen, this is not supposed to happen. If it's coming up for you, it's supposed to happen. If it's coming up, it's because you're ready to face it and to be cleared. But the more you bring curiosity to why something is happening, the more you stop taking it personally. And within this case specifically, the more you realize that they're not rejecting you, that this isn't a sign that you're not good enough, that you're not doing the work, that if only you were better, you were doing more work, you were more advanced, then they would see. It is part of the journey that you experience scenarios like this. And it's precisely through scenarios like this that you remember what's real. You remember yourself as the love. You remember yourself as the original divine counterpart. And you realize that that can never be broken, no matter what's playing out in your 3D reality. And that's the beauty of it. It can be extremely painful, and I don't want to dismiss that or invalidate that, because it is. And like I outlined in this video, you're not just grieving somebody rejecting you or somebody denying a connection that feels real to you. You're grieving lifetime after lifetime after lifetime of being messed around with, of being separated from yourself. And that's the paradox. You must remember yourself as whole. You must remember yourself as divine for the outside to mirror that to you. And the outside can only mirror that to you once they have also gone through that process. And they only have the energetic space to go through their own collapse when you remove your energy from the field, when you stop carrying it for them, when you stop projecting your need, your unworthiness onto them, because that just pushes them further away from the connection, which means further away from themselves, and it doesn't allow them to sit in the void and the vacuum that they need to face themselves and to collapse from the inside out. Because whenever we're reaching, and this doesn't have to be necessarily through messaging, it's not about that. It's through our own suffering, through our own pain. But then again, it needs to happen. It's a process because we literally need to feel our way through all of it and to flush all of it out. So I just want to wrap this up by saying none of this is wrong. This is all meant to be. It's all meant to happen. That's why separation is here. It's to get us to work through these wounds, to really heal from all this trauma, and to restore our soul alignment, to come into our divine embodiment. And only then can they truly start to remember and to stop running away from themselves, because that is what is happening. You hold up a mirror just by existing, just by being. You hold up a mirror to them to the truth of who they are and who they've forgotten themselves to be. So I hope that this video brings you some clarity if this is what you're experiencing, or if you've experienced it before. I hope that I've brought some deeper insight into the dynamics at play for monadic twins going through separation. And I do want to let you know that I've just released a womb, heart, throat axis healing and activation. I uploaded it to my website store. This is a quantum healing transmission. It's incredibly potent, and it's for divine feminines or any female practitioner that's seasoned enough to realign these energy centers. I did it myself a few days ago, and it's very, very, very powerful, very potent, like I said. So it is recommended for more advanced practitioners because it realigns you. But for that to happen, it needs to bring to the surface any buried templates of abuse, of trauma, of silencing. So especially if you've had many lifetimes as a priestess, as a mystic, as an oracle, and a lot of us have, and so we've been through all these lifetimes of being used and abused for our powers. Especially in those cases, you will very likely experience deep purges. So I do recommend this if you're going to go at it solo. I do recommend this for those who have already established and have the capacity to hold themselves through somatic release, through deep purges, and through karmic clearing, because it can be very intense. And if you're new to this type of work and you're not as experienced, I would recommend either booking a session with me or your trusted healer to integrate. This is a very important part of healing and of spiritual expansion that I think a lot of practitioners fail to mention. It's not just about doing the healings, it's about integrating what comes out, because distortion is very heavy. It can be very heavy, and in order for healing and realignment to occur, it has to come to the surface to be cleared. So it rises, and we need to be equipped to deal with what comes up. That said, it's extremely, extremely just helpful. And especially now that we are approaching the Lionsgate portal, that also, evokes this creativity, this expression, this heart-led living and coherence. So although this healing can be done at any point in time, I do really highly recommend doing it throughout this portal. The portal closes on August 12th. So I'm going to leave the direct link to that below in case you're interested. Thank you so much for watching. I won't take up more of your time. Thank you, pardon me. And do let me know in the comments if you enjoyed this video, if you feel the resonance of this transmission and this message. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you're enjoying this and if you're finding these useful, just so that message can get out there and I can reach more and more people and I can grow and expand as well. I send you all so much love, and I will see you very soon in the next video. Thank you so much for being here.